I rise to take a call on Part 2, which are the amendments to the Public Finance Act. I want to start with the change that's heralded at Clause 63 of the bill, which changes the way in which the annual financial statements of the Secretary of the Treasury are published. Currently, annual financial statements have to be published in paper. This legislation, and this is an example of why the Labor Party is supporting this legislation, updates it so as to take advantage of information technologies that are now available to ensure that the accounts, the annual financial statements, the audit report and the statement of responsibility of the Treasury remain on an internet site for inspection by members of the public for at least 5 financial years after the financial year to which the financial statements relate. So if I read that correctly, and the Minister and the Chair can tell me if I've got that wrong, but that effectively means that they're going to be available to the public for 6 years, and they'll be able to make comparisons. And so, using the example that my colleague just gave, where they're trying to track a change in expenditure, I think the answer that you used, the example you used, was in respect of ACC. If there was a 42% decrease in funding over 4 years, you'd actually be able to track that year by year through the internet to see what was happening over time. Now, assuming I'm reading this correctly, I presume that would extend to the likes of the ACC, although it may be that because they're a separate corporation, they're dealt with specifically in their separate legislation. Certainly in respect to the Treasury, the Secretary must ensure that those statements remain available on the internet site for inspection by members of the public for at least 5 financial years. Mr. Speaker, the next issue I would like to briefly address, because I'm not sure I quite understand it properly, is Clause 75 of the bill, which amends Section 80. And this amends the ability of the Treasury to give instructions to departments. Now, before doing so, I would note that elsewhere in the Act we make it clear that is the responsibility of chief executives of departments they're responsible for financial management of their departments. So if we look at the new Clause 35 inserted by Clause 85 of the bill, the new Section 85 says that the responsibilities of chief executives for financial management of non-departmental matters, it makes it clear that in addition to the other responsibilities of chief executives for the financial management of departmental matters, which are referred to in the prior clause, prior part of Clause 85, which amends Section 34, and it requires that the financial management of departmental matters is a responsibility of the chief executive. That's how it should be. It says the chief executive is responsible to the minister for financial management, financial performance, financial sustainability of the department, and must comply with any lawful actions required by the minister or the responsible minister. Very, very important clause, that the chief executive of a department must comply with any lawful financial actions required by the minister or the responsible minister. And at times I've heard it said by some ministers that they feel that the relationship of power goes the other way. So it's quite good to see that this Parliament is emphasising in this piece of legislation that the chief executive of a department must comply with any lawful financial actions required by the minister or the responsible minister. I don't think that that's meant to imply that any ministers are irresponsible, so I'm not quite sure what the difference is between the minister or the responsible minister, and perhaps the responsible minister and the chair could take a call to clarify what the difference is in that clause between the minister and the responsible minister. Mr. Chairman, what it says is that the chief executive of a department that administers an appropriation, and they all do, Mr. Chairman.
Honourable David Parker.
The Chief Executive of a department that administers an appropriation is responsible to the Appropriation Minister for what is achieved with the expenditure under that appropriation. So that's making the link through, not only do they have to comply with lawful financial actions required by the Minister, they're also responsible to ensure that the appropriation, they're responsible to the Minister for what is achieved with the expenditure under that appropriation. So they've got to comply with those financial directives and they've got to make sure that they're responsible for what's achieved. Mr. Chairman, then there are similar obligations in respect of non-departmental matters that I don't have the time to properly address. But that then brings me to this clause 75, which somewhat confuses me in the amendment of section 80, which relates to instructions that the Treasury can give to departments or departmental agencies. And it says that subject to the provisions of this Act or any regulations made under it, the Treasury may issue instructions to departments, not chief executives, but departments or departmental agencies for the purposes specified in section 81(1)(a) of the Principal Act. And of course, the Principal Act is the Public Finance Act 1989. Section, if I've got this right, unless I'm confused as to which act this particular clause is amending. Now, I've got the Public Finance Act 1989 in front of me, and clause section 81. There, thank you to my colleague Chris Farfoy, who already had it out. And section 81(1)(a) of the Act talks about requiring information to be supplied by the Treasury by departments and other entities referred to in sections 27(3)(a) to F to enable the Treasury to properly fulfil the functions imposed on it by the government or any Act. And I'm not sure what the purposes of the change to this clause 81 of the, the change to section 81 from the existing Act, which currently provides, subject to the provisions of this Act and any regulations made under this Act, the Treasury may issue instructions to departments for all or any of the purposes specified in section 81(1)(a), 81(a)(b), B, BC, BD, or C to E. So I'm not sure what the import is of that change, and I would invite the Minister and the Chair to take a call and clarify that important point for me. Mr. Chair, the next point I would like the Minister to address, if she is to take a call, is the effect of what it is that she envisages that a chief executive of a department that administers an appropriation for which that chief executive is responsible to the appropriation minister for what's achieved. And then the second part of the clause that I want the minister to address is what happens given that this clause requires that chief executive to be responsible for advising the appropriation minister on the efficiency and effectiveness of departmental expenses and departmental capital expenditure under that appropriation. Now, this is getting to the nub of how you hold chief executives and the departments for which they are responsible to account for the objectives of the government. And for example, when a government sets as an election promise the fact that they're going to narrow the wage gap with Australia, or eliminate it, I think they were going to eliminate the wage gap with Australia. Where is it that we see in these various accountability documents that being devolved down to departments in a way that the government can expect accountability from them and then be held accountable to the population for the promise they made at the election? What if the gap widens? Well, Mr. Cunliffe, you're quite right. You know, if we have those sorts of accountabilities, I would expect it would be of importance to the electorate to understand that those targets weren't being met, but rather that the gap between the incomes of those working in New Zealand and Australia is widening.
I call the honourable member Megan Woods.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And it's my pleasure to take my first